Welcome back to the Fullerton College Prepress class. This is part 4 of our Prepress review chapter 6.8. I got 99 problems and bleed is most of them. Okay, so let's take a look at common digital file problems. We won't go into details on all of these because this is a review, but when people send you their print files, things to look out for that commonly go wrong, and I would have put this in a different order myself, missing fonts. They didn't embed them correctly, so you don't have the font necessary to do the output. Missing graphics. Pictures that they thought were in there because they may not fully understand how InDesign works and how it doesn't actually put the images in. And if the computer can't find the picture on the output, it doesn't put it in. You might get some low resolution looking images that are in fact missing graphics. Or they could have graphics that they thought they put in, they just simply forgot to include. Graphics that don't embed, that don't go properly, so they're not there. Colors specified incorrectly, or images in the wrong color space. Similar problems. Incorrectly specified colors often involve spot color problems going both directions. I don't know, half, we'll just say half of the problem. I don't actually have statistics to back me up to say what percentage it is, but I'll say about half of the issue is people who are using spot color who don't realize they are. I've known a lot of graphic designers, some really cool ones I've enjoyed working with, who really just thought the Pantone swatches were a happy little fun book of colors to click on and get pre-made colors. Not realizing that they then sent me a print file with the best one ever, no less than 17 spot colors plus CMYK. So that was a 21 color print job. You can just imagine a press with 21 press units on it and like an entire giant army of press operators all making this thing go just to print this postcard, because they use those swatches thinking they were nice colors, but those nice colors all come at a cost. I mean, literally, they come at a cost. Spot color costs extra to do, typically, because it does. Because it even costs you, the printer, more to use it. The other direction is when they thought they made a spot color, but they didn't. So they're like, yeah, I like Pantone Reflex Blue. That's great. I love that color. Here is my design. And they used RGB blue in it instead because they think it looks about right. And in fact, it just translates into a dull purpley gray blue when it converts to CMYK because it was never specified properly. If you want it to be spot color, it has to be set properly in the file. And if you want it not to be spot color, it must not be set to that. Anyways, so moving on here. Images in the wrong color space. Although a lot of RIPs are now getting better at translating RGB to CMYK, it can be an issue, or worse, if it's like index or something, then best of luck to you. But anyways, images can be set in the wrong color space. Some print shops will specify that they want everything sent in CMYK. Some are okay with RGB colors, preferring to do color management on their side to make sure they can control the process. Either way, though, whatever is required and requested is what should be delivered. Page settings can be wrong, which oftentimes means they just got the size incorrect. Cannot count the number of times people sent me files that were the wrong size. And I mean, the email that ordered it from me would say, I want a 5x7 postcard. And they would send me an 8.5x11 letter size page as their graphic. Or I want a banner for, hanging at my kid's soccer game. Okay, cool, I'll print that. And they send me an 8.5x11 letter size design. Or they say, I want a business card. And they send me an 8.5x11 letter size design. It's always letter because they're using Microsoft Word or Publisher where it's very difficult to change your page size. And they don't realize that that's on them. Anyways, page settings not properly specified. There are some more insidious ones. You could have inadequately set up margins or some other issue visually, but typically it's a completely wrong size or wrong number of pages or something that's completely different than what they ordered. They say they want a poster, but what they actually sent you was a business card. And like, well, it's not going to scale that well. And also this is not the right type of thing. So some of those are rather easy to figure out by figuring out if they just emailed you the wrong file, which is half of that problem anyways. Graphics not linked. I kind of talked about this already with the missing graphics. If you don't link a graphic correctly through your files, it won't appear, or it'll appear as a ghost of its former self in low resolution. This was a bigger problem when people would send EPS files back before the coming of the PDF. EPS sometimes requires a linked file sent with it that the receiving computer can then also link to. making it a little bit more clunky and a little bit harder to work with if you're sending it to someone else. PDFs typically embed images for you, so that saves a lot of the problems there. But if they didn't link properly in InDesign or Quark, then when they export it, it'll still send that ghost low resolution image. Bleeds inadequate. Remember, you can't print to the edge. You have to print on a bigger sheet of paper and cut the edges off. It's like making a sandwich with no crust. Your mom cuts the crust off for you. I hate to ruin the illusion for you guys, but it's impossible to make bread without a crust. A sandwich with no crust means someone cut the crust off. Printing to the edge of the page doesn't happen. If it looks like it happened, it's because someone printed extra and trimmed the edges. When I said bleeds, hopefully all your heads kicked into gear and you just robotically replied 1/8 of an inch. That's kind of our greater good, the greater good. Bleeds 1/8 of an inch. It should just be coming out of your mouth involuntarily when you hear the word bleed. In fact, it should make it really awkward if you ever go to a hospital. Anyways, lastly, image resolution too low or too high. Fairly self-explanatory. Never seen an image too high. Well, I did once with a student, but that was because they put 17,000 images on one sheet, and it took the computer 4 hours to process each click, and they clicked a few times impatiently. That was interesting. But most of the time, almost all the time ever, images are too low because someone takes it on a cell phone, and the ad for the cell phone says takes great pictures. But what it really meant was takes great pictures if you look at them on the cell phone, not takes professional quality photos for printing posters, because typically you need a special equipment for that. What's a proof? It's a preliminary representation of what an eventual printed piece will look like. That means before we make the plates, before we do all the setup and get a big project ready to go, in some cases also make dies and cut special cutout pieces and all this other manufactured bits and custom made embossing dies and foil stampers. Well, the proof lets the customer approve it before you get to the stage of wasting all that time and money of getting ready to actually run it. So it's typically run on a different press. And the closeness of the representation will depend on the type and how you do it. Content proofs. This is more common and a lot of people are content. Haha, see what I did there? With only content proofs. If people are not really picky about nailing a corporate brand color, then as long as it doesn't look terrible, it looks fine. And content proofs are great for that. Content proof means look at this thing. Is everything spelled right? Are all the pictures in the right place? Did all the pictures get included? Did you mean to ask for that price on your advertisement, or did you really think you wanted to change that sale price? That's a content proof. Making sure all the things are there. Is it in the right place? But a contract proof is a prediction of what the color is going to look like. That costs more and is more difficult to do and is typically reserved for people willing to pay for it. Hard and soft proofs. A hard proof is a proof printed on paper, something you can hold in your hand. It can be run on an inkjet press. You can use those awesome, expensive, specialized ablative donor sheet things. Those are great, but I've never gotten to play with one myself. Maybe someday. Toner-based, I do a lot of that. That's like a Xerox type machine. There's other types out there that can be done. And there's also soft proofing, which means you're looking at it on a computer screen, hopefully a computer screen. One of the worst things that happen to printing, in my opinion, your teacher's getting political and opinionated on you here, just on my own level of stuff. Cell phones, smartphones specifically, have posed a big challenge and have kind of made proofing more difficult because the PDF readers are a little shaky on there and don't always display them correctly. Colors look wrong. Images don't quite load correctly. I've seen a lot of problems and also dealt with a lot of people complaining about things in a proof that were there, but they used the wrong device to look at it. So if you can know they're going to look at it on a computer, soft proofs are great. If they might look at it on their phone, you could be facing all sorts of issues and causing all sorts of doubt that didn't need to be caused because the cell phone doesn't necessarily handle things very well. Okay. Definitions. Oh, we're getting into stuff I like. Color management. Color is a phenomenon of light. And if you're not hearing that Muppet song, Phenomena, I can't hear phenomenon without thinking of that. So now it's in your head too. You're welcome. It's a visual sensation. It's something you experience. It's a phenomenon is something you know through senses rather through thought. You don't reason out how an apple tastes. The flavor of the apple you bite into. I really should stop recording these things hungry. But the flavor of the apple you're eating is a sensation. It's a phenomenon. It's not something anyone else can ever duplicate exactly. It's how you are interacting with that fruit at that moment. So color is very similar to flavor or smell. It's how your body is sensing that light that is coming off of something. And a theory is a scientifically generally accepted principle that explains a phenomenon, meaning why does an apple taste the way it does? Why does that color look the way it looks? And it's also unproven. If it's proven, it's no longer a theory, it's considered scientific law. So color theory is an unproven assumption about those things we see when light hits stuff. Let's get into this stuff. So color representation and color reproduction here. We have right now additive color on the screen. I mean, you always do, technically speaking, because your screen is additive. You can't get away from that. You can try to simulate what subtractive color will look like, but it never accounts for everything the way actual subtractive color does. So additive color means you start with darkness. You can't say a sentence like that without using that voice. Anyways, you start with nothing. You start with black. You start with lights off, eyes closed, nothing. And you gradually add light to the situation, to the darkness. And as you add light with different wavelengths, different colors appear. In additive color, the primary colors, the colors that cannot be mixed but are used to mix other colors, are red, green, and blue, RGB. Those three colors are specifically, when you start talking about mapping color, remember that color is a phenomenon. Color is something that we experience as people, as humans. It's our vision system's way of understanding the world we look at. So when you start to map color theory and color mixing and color management, what you're really looking at is controlling the visual experience of another human. I know I've said it before and I'll say it again because I'm dorky and I find this stuff really interesting. The types of images we look at as people might not look like anything at all, not just like they wouldn't know our language. If you showed it to a space alien, should they exist to be intelligent and we could talk to them or something, I don't know, Star Trek stuff, and they looked at something we printed or even one of our computer screens, it may not make any sense to them at all. They wouldn't be unsure about how we communicate with these wavelengths of light, because let me tell you that mixing these colors doesn't actually do anything in the physical world. It does it in your head. What's happening is you have receptors in your eyeballs called cones that are nerves that are sensitive to different wavelengths of light. Green, red, and blue, sorry, red, green, and blue, I should go in the proper RGB order on that one. Red, green, and blue are the three types of color that we are sensitive to. So when you're mixing things, what you're doing is simulating the effect that we get when we go around the world and see stuff. When you see a color in the world, you are seeing sunlight or whatever the light bulb you have reflecting off of the object, and whatever colors it lets you hit your eyes is what you see. Additive color is just going ahead and activating the same combination of sensors in your eyeball, sorry, nerves. We're not machines. I'm not a robot. I swear I'm human. I think I just failed the Turing test. Sorry, guys. Anyways, your eyeballs sensors, your eyeballs nerves get certain sensations when you see different things in the world. Your TV, your computer, your cell phone, anything with additive color, well, actually any color made by man, really, but any additive color that you're looking at on those devices is designed to give you the same sensations and to activate the same parts of your eye that would have been activated in the real world. If you look at a red rose in your yard or somewhere else, on a walking path somewhere, a red rose, smells good too in my memory. A good red rose, you're not looking at like red pigment necessarily. You're not looking at red light being blasted into your eyes. What you're seeing is the sunlight reflecting off this object, and the different chemicals and materials that make up the rose absorb some of the color, and some of the other color comes back, and you're seeing this red that is that color. The same color of a red or kind of maroony rose you would see in real life shown on your computer is electronic cells that, when activated with electricity, shine and give off light of the same wavelength. It's entirely false. Anyways, I'm sorry I had to go that far on that. So subtractive color is the other way around. And I think I talked too long on additive color and color viewing. I got stuck in the weeds because I enjoy this topic too much. I'm sorry, guys. I like color. Let me go ahead and stop and come back for another video on this. Apologies. We'll go back to that slide for it too and go with a quick review and then jump on to how subtractive color is different.